guys, what's up? I'm back. I'm sorry if my voice is a little raspy, it's a little early here, but we're gonna get through this. I want to make sure that I have all of this stuff already done, like all of these videos that I have to get through. There's a lot of a lot of ground to cover still, so I kind of want to start early and then get as many as I can done. All right. So as the day go along, I'll probably be a little bit livelier. I have my coffee. All right. So let's get to this. All right. So the last time, the last video, we were left off where I was showing you basically the structure of the file that you get, the structure of the folder that you get from React out of the box, and basically how it works and how it gets put together and all that. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to now start building up and into this main architecture of the site before I even actually start to code my website, okay, or my application. We should just actually not call it websites. We should call it applications, because in the professional world, you're not going to always be doing a website for, I don't know, for a mechanic shop or something like that. You're not always going to be doing stuff like that. You sometimes will be doing web applications that are going to be used as a software application for data entry and things like that, like a dashboard looking thing. And so we call it applications more than we call it websites. Okay, websites is kind of like a rookie thing. All right, so all right, so let's get to this. So what we want to do is, before we do anything else, I want to make sure that this application component right here, that is our main component, I want to turn this into a class component. Right now it's a function component, but I want to use it into a class component, which is still going to use a function anyway, but there's something different about it. So I'm going to use const, because const is basically a variable, and it's basically saying that I want to store app into, the code in here. I want to store this code in here inside this constant variable called app. And by making it constant, it means that it won't change, that no matter what, it will always remain that. I can rewrite it. I can write const app, put something here, and then do the same thing on the bottom again and make app equals something else. I can't do that because a const variable is not rewritable. Okay, so now if it was let, sure. If it was var, sure, but not const. So whenever you declare a function for a class in one of the components, it's always going to be a const, because you want that component to remain unchanged in itself. You just want to make sure that you mutate the properties that are inside the code properly, but not the actual function itself. You don't want to rename a bunch of functions the same or rewrite the same function again and change completely what's inside by just basically rechanging the function, redeclaring the function. It's kind of weird, I know. All right, so const app instead of function, and then now that's going to equal to all of this stuff here, and boom, done. So this is it. This is all you needed to do. So I just basically turned a function into a fat arrow function. Now this gives me the ability to use state, and I can destructure state here, and that is coming from another page, and then use it within the app here. Hello from, something like that, for example. I can eventually do that. So this doesn't really make a whole lot of sense right now, and I don't need it to. So don't worry about this stuff right here. Let's just keep it the way it is. And if you look and you save now and I refresh, nothing changes. Everything is still the same. So this change here didn't really affect anything. If anything, it's going to improve it eventually. Okay. All right. So now moving along, I want to, that was the only change that I wanted to do. Now we're going to go into a separate section, which is going to be adding Bootstrap to the application. So why do I want to add Bootstrap? First of all, let's pull up Bootstrap so we know what it is and what it does for you. So I had already pulled out here, and you can go to it by that right there, getbootstrap.com. Okay, so what is Bootstrap? Bootstrap is basically a library of it's a boilerplate. It's an HTML, CSS, and JavaScript boilerplate, and it basically gives you a kit of UI elements that you can use. So think of it as a pre-made sections of a website. Look at it that way, right? So instead, I don't know if you know this, but there are a lot of contracting companies out there, construction companies out there, that they have prefabricated walls, for example, right? And they basically just bring a wall that's already prefabricated, and they just kind of like put it there and put another one there, and then you just, you know, and like that, and that's how they do a lot of homes these days too. You know, if you look at it that way, this is kind of like that. Like, you have already sections of a site that are going to be very common, right? Like a nav bar. This right here, this is very common in every website to have a nav bar. So they already have a nav bar like this built in, and then all you have to do is basically change the colors on it, change what's inside it, but the structure, the overall structure of the nav bar is already going to be there. So what they did is basically built it ahead for you so that you don't have to write it all from scratch. Okay, so if we go in here to get started and ignore all of this and go to components, you see all of these cool components here. This is awesome. All of this stuff here we would normally have to do from scratch, and it would take a long time. It will burn up all the time that you have to make your application at your job, because at your job they're going to give you a certain time. They're going to give you like 3 to 4 weeks or whatever to come up with something, and you don't want to burn up all that time building stuff that you can just basically inherit from here if your job allows you to use Bootstrap. Most of the time that is something that is already pre-agreed and at the beginning stages. So and also Bootstrap is not the only one. This is just one of the most common ones, but there's also Material UI, there's UI Kit, there's a lot of them, but those are the Bootstrap and Material UI are the most. So I suggest you get sorry if you hear that, there's a helicopter going over me right now. Weird. I feel like I'm still in the army. Alright, so let's look at this, for example. Let's look at that same nav bar. If you look at the nav bar now, you go down a little bit, you can read through all of this on your own. You're gonna see this nav bar, for example, here. Here's the code. You know, normally all of this code right here will have to be done, you know, from scratch. So this saves you a lot of time. We can just grab all of this and just put it over there and paste it. Okay. In fact, let's just do that. Let's control copy that, and let's just go right there into the app for right now. Okay, normally I would have a component called header, for example, and put that in there, but let's just put it in here for now because eventually we'll move it out of here too. And let's make sure that this is in the proper placing, because I don't like things looking like that. And one of the things that we have to make sure is that, remember, React doesn't use class for CSS classes. They use class name. So what I'm going to do here, and you can tell that this is squiggly thing here that is basically telling me the nav has no corresponding closing tag. It's just basically screaming at you because something here is wrong. So I'm going to do this and Control D, and it will select all of these classes, and I do Control D because I want to make sure that I see what it is selecting. You could do like a Control F and then select all, but then you won't see every single one that you're selecting. And what if you're selecting something that is also says class, but it's not really that particular one? It's maybe some other text or whatever. So I hit arrow right, so I can get to the end of my selection, and I just write name, and it adds it to all of them. So great. So now I have class name already added, and it's still yelling at me. Let's find out what that is. All right, so let's look at this right here. This UL and this LI. So that is closing for HR. Okay, so there is an HR in there that is not closing this HR. Okay, so you see this HR right here. it doesn't have, normally every HTML has a closing tag like that, right? But for HR, it's a self-closing. And okay, so let's just go over that a little bit for a second, because I think it's worth mentioning that, because that's something that you're gonna see a lot. There are going to be two that I can remember right now. There are going to be two, and let's, for the sake of explaining it, let's just do it wrong first and then do it right. This HR means horizontal line, and this BR means a break rule. So what they do is basically, this one adds a little horizontal line underneath something, and then this one adds a space, right? Because these two right here don't accept any content in it like that, they don't need to have a closing line, a closing tag separated from the opening tag, like you see this LI, for example, or like you see this A, for example. The reason why they have opening and closing is because they have content inside it, such as that something else here thing, right? So because these two don't accept, all they do is just draw a line or make a space. They don't have any content. So because they don't have any content, they are self-closing. So you don't need this closing tag, and instead you self-close it like this. That's how you self-close. On the HR and the BR, they just basically self-close it itself, because they do not require any content. So I'm gonna take that break because I don't need that break, and I am going to bring that back up. I guess I didn't need to bring it back up, but it doesn't matter. So now you see how it's looking a little closer. And now we still have something here that is yelling at me. So an input. Okay. So same thing with the input. The input, although it does have content, it doesn't have content inside of the. It's weird. Let's just not burn time on that. Let's just go ahead and self-close it, and it's fine. All right. And then these are basically just these are warnings. These are not errors. They're yellow. Don't worry too much about that. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and save and see what I got going on here. Weird. So I added this, but it doesn't look like this. How so? Well, the reason why it doesn't look like that is because we haven't actually installed Bootstrap into our application, into our main stack. So how do we do this? So I'm gonna collapse this so it's out of the way, just to keep it there. And I'm gonna go back to this package.json file that I talked about last video or two. Remember when I said about these dependencies right here, that we were gonna have to eventually add more to this, and this was gonna grow? It's time to make it grow. We have to add Bootstrap to these dependencies. Basically, we have to make sure that our application has Bootstrap available to us for us to use. So what I'm gonna do is I am going to open up and hit this plus icon there, and you can see now that it's there, and then hit this right here so you can split it anytime now. I don't know if it's split it or not. Oh, there we go. All right, so it just takes a little bit of time. So so now that I have this is my main terminal that is running the application, the npm start. Okay, so I don't want that disturbed unless I actually have to recompile, like I have to restart the application. So I want to leave it there, and I want to work on a new one here. How do you know which one is compiling and which one is new? You can see here that there's your name is, you know, your main not name, but your main file or your main structure, whatever it is that your computer has. It's not showing here, but in this one it is. It shows the beginning of your compiling, and you can write. In this one you can't. Well, I mean you can, but it won't do anything. Anyway, so I'm gonna delete that. All right, so I'm gonna put in here npm install, save, and then Bootstrap. What does that mean? So I'm basically telling my application, I want you to install an npm package that is called Bootstrap. Make sure that it saves it in my dependencies. I know it's a little weird, like, but just do it in this order. It makes more sense. Especially npm install. These two definitely have to go together. If you put save after Bootstrap is fine, but npm install definitely do have to follow each other. So now when I hit enter, this should go pretty quickly, and voila, look at this. Bootstrap is in there. So now Bootstrap is in there, so let's see now where our application is. You think that it changed? Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. It's not changing. Wonder why? Well, this is why. Although we added Bootstrap to our library and it's basically available now, it's available, but it's not being referenced. You're not telling the application to use something that we actually have available to it. So it's kind of like you took a hammer to your job in your tool belt, but you're now facing a nail, and your boss is not telling you, hey, use the hammer. Or you're not telling your brain to tell your hand to grab the hammer, whatever, right? So how are we going to actually tell it? So we want Bootstrap to have the global control of our application, right? Because you don't want to have to tell Bootstrap, hey, install for this page, install for that page, install for that page, or use it in this page or that page. You want Bootstrap to be used in the entire website at the very top. So you're going to go to the index, which is the index is going to be the very top of your file, and then you're going to import it there. So just to make this a little faster, I'm just going to copy and paste it, and then you can make a pause and copy that and paste it there. All right, and make sure that's at the index.js right there, and then when I hit save, now look what happens. If I restart, bam, there you go. Here's my navbar. Looks a little different. You see, so it's a little different here, but that's because it is in the responsive view or mode or whatever. Basically, it's showing you what a mobile window will look like because of the size of the viewport. If I open it to the size of a laptop or desktop, then it will look like the other one. But we're gonna keep it like this because I need you guys to see both screens. Okay, so there you go. We have Bootstrap working. Now we can make use of anything else that we have in here. Let's say, for example, underneath of that, I want to add a bunch of cards, right? So let's look at cards layout, card groups. Let's look at this card groups, grid cards, grid cards. Okay, so let's say these grid cards right here. I want to use these grid cards. No problem. I can come over here and I can grab that code, and then I can come back to my app.js, right here where I'm developing stuff, and I can come over here and add it there. Make sure that it's in the right place, and then this class is right here. I'm going to, this time I'm going to actually include the equal because I don't want to do anything to this class right here. I just want to do it to these ones. Control D. Make sure that I am selecting the ones that I want. Yep, and then arrow right and then arrow left one time so that we can get to the end of the class part, and then add name with a capital N. Alright, and then now there is most likely something self-closing. Okay, so image is self-closing, so I'm gonna do that to that image, and to this image, and to this one. These images are not going to load, by the way, because I don't have that image saved in my application. There you go, so all errors are gone. So you're not gonna see that image anyway. So if I save it, now see, you don't see it. That's because I don't have this great block image saved in my application. But the point remains is that it still allowed me to add this cards into my application, as you can see. So it works. Okay, I have full control of Bootstrap. That's awesome. All right, so I'm gonna stop right now because I wanted you to see how you can add Bootstrap and use Bootstrap out of the box without any custom work on it. But we don't want to just use Bootstrap like that. We want to make it prettier. You don't want to use this vanilla colors, you want it to actually be styled, right, and have some kind of life in it. So we're gonna do that in the next video. Before I leave, if you guys want to subscribe and hit that bell button so that you can get notifications whenever I add a new video, that's up to you. I'm not one of these YouTubers that really pester anybody for likes, so I probably won't be asking you too often. But it's only because I don't make a living out of YouTube. I don't really care. I have my own job. I do this to help you guys out. But if you want to subscribe, go for it. All right, and I'll see you in the next one.